All right. Yeah, so thanks again for everyone for joining this today. This is a kickoff and kind of essentially a reboot of what we had worked on from Q1 and Q2 of this year around essentially building out a better mechanism for us to have feedback from what we're hearing out in the field, what we're hearing in the industry, and bringing that back to the product team so that we're able to be more effective with our prioritization mostly, right? So give you some background, right? We have this process there. Well, actually stepping back even further than that, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, our process for giving this feedback was essentially a top 10 list of issues that had been compiled by, TAMs and SA managers to, bring to the product team and say, hey, these are the things that we're hearing that are loudest from our customers, have lots of upvotes, all that kind of stuff with our issues. And so that process we didn't like very much because, first of all, there's a big difference between feedback we're getting from existing customers and prospective customers. And a lot of that feedback, because they tend to be the people we talk to the most, are from existing customers. So there were some gaps with that, right? So there's that process. Then from there, we moved to this process where we started to collect upvotes on issues. And we're still doing this. This is not something that is going away. Essentially the loudest, the ones that have the most activity, those are the ones that get kind of pushed to the top of that list, goes into Sensei, and then we get compiling all that data, right? So that one's pretty good as well, something we want to continue to use. However, some of the problems with that is that we don't have, we're not having the candid dialogue conversations with the people who are actually speaking with those people. So it's hard to understand impact, hard to understand prioritization, and also, I think the other part of that is that we're getting feedback that's directly coming from customers. Say, I use the example oftentimes. It's like, hey, we need a integration with XYZ ServiceNow, for example. We need this, we need this, we need this. But really what we're actually hearing from the field is we need an external mechanism for us to have to do approvals and get that back into GitLab, right? That's a more generic solution that we can accommodate many, many, many change management solutions out there. So this process kind of came out of what I've worked with in previous organizations, and I think this works pretty well, right? Is that we've got 10 different stages. There's lots there. There's lots of expertise from product, from CS, from sales, all those people around that who are spending a lot of time in these areas. And, the idea here is that we have representatives. So thanks again for all those people from the CS and the product organization who's volunteered for this to essentially help collect this data and have conversations with the product team so they can hear what those things are that we're hearing out there, what are the loudest ones, but then also what is the rationale and reasoning behind that? And are there ways that we can present it so product can take that and actually make decisions based off of how we best think it will fit into our product versus go take this and go put it in there, right? Which is a lot of times what we're hearing right now. And that's not a super effective way and ends up with lots of technical debt. It takes a really long time and it's not very scalable either, right? And so, idea-wise here, so we have the idea that we want to collect data from pre and post sales. So we have a SA and a TAM, two in some cases on each side of that to collect the feedback from those people to bring it to the product organization. And the best effective way that we found to do this, and we've done some trials with some of the teams in the past few months, is essentially throughout the course of the month, and this is if you pull open the document on the feedback guidance doc, which by the way, we'll be moving this to the handbook shortly, but just want to do this for collaboration, and thanks to everyone from product and CS who has contributed to this and provided some feedback on this as well. Essentially, taking feedback from the CS team, we hear this from the customers, creating an issue into an issue template inside that product feedback project that we've created. There's a template in there that outlines all the information that we've determined that the product managers want to hear from that. Put it all in there, and then the week after release, so when we have a little bit of breathing room, we have a conversation with the team, so the small team that you all kind of organize on your own independent time, to go through the list that has come up. Hey, there's 4 items in here, high priority items, right? These are only for things that are really critical. All the smaller, hey, these are backlog type issues, ideas, things along those lines. That's not really what this is for. These are for things that are pressing to impact ICV or potential growth of the customers. Is a comment there? No. So that being said, if you take a look at this document, in fact, I'll just share to make this a little bit easier. yeah, again, kind of go through this. You can see the history. You can see that feedback product, our project here with the boards already set up with all the swim lanes for each individual group. And then, this is conceptually the idea here, right? We've been talking about feedback comes from the field, goes to product, and vice versa. We hear things from the teams on how we should implement this stuff, and it comes back to the CS team of, hey, this is what we are implementing for that. Go take this back to the team so we can better sell it and better talk to our customers about how we're implementing these solutions. Information around the feedback stuff. I'm not going to go through this. I just wanted to get down to the bottom here because this is kind of what this team is responsible for, right? If this initiative is that the CS team here will, collect feedback, right, between the release in the 22nd of the month, prioritize the issues. The CS stage leads, right, the people who are on this call from the CS organization, review that, talk to the teams who would submit that, get more information around that. And then the week after release, have an hour conversation with the product team, CS and product together, in just your specific stage. These all happen at their own times based on your time zones and whatever else works for that smaller group. Discuss the feedback, any action plans, and then also this is a good place for us to provide some as we get through month after month, and we do work on some of these high priority issues, getting feedback from that product organization to the CS team lead to bring back to the rest of the CS organization so that we have, an idea of, hey, this is coming, there's some delays, this is our implementation strategy. Can we get some people to help out with beta testing, or, give us, get on a call with someone so we can better understand that kind of conversation. And then that kind of just happens in a cyclical fashion that way, right? And then ultimately, hopefully the results we'll have here is, fewer urgent escalations with customers. Oftentimes in pre-sales, we hear those, we need this one thing, or we can't move forward. It's some requirement, maybe procurement thing, maybe a, something that there's feature parity with their existing solution, whatever that may be, trying to reduce that so there's not as much disruption into the flow of the product team. And then better alignment with, industry trends, right? What we're hearing out there from Forrester, Gartner, the direction that people are going with DevOps, with software development, all of that space. So we're kind of staying ahead of that because we're getting that information from the people that they talk to, right? And that's going to help us with, being in those, leaderboards, but also help us make sure that we're, staying ahead of the competition and, kind of taking the next steps for the next best thing that we can do with our product. So spoke a lot there pretty quickly, and just wanted to lay that out as an initial piece, kind of giving some concept of what this looks like. And then real quickly before I stop and kind of open up some discussion here, here is the project that we had set up, the issue template that's inside of here, and the boards that we'll have laid out here as well. So as a CS member, not just the stage leads, they'll go and create an issue, put it in these boards. Then your team will be able to kind of look at, hey, here's the priority, or here's the high priority issues, and then we have prioritization associated with that, and then we can kind of have a dialogue and conversation here, link to existing issues in the GitLab tracker, all that kind of stuff that's associated there. Pause there. Open up for any thoughts, questions on what I just talked about there first.
Good. Yeah, just to reiterate, yeah, I don't really have anything to say other than that looks really good. Is a good starting point. Yeah, the plan for rollout is my interest. When we get started on this, what's the plan for Kickoff?
Yeah, and that's something I need to spend time with. This is why I had to getting Sakamoto involved in this too, because for this to work effectively, the CS team has to be putting this information into that for the team leads to be in these conversations. Otherwise, it doesn't work, right? That's the biggest risk of this, is that if we don't get that initial feedback put in a way that's meaningful, then we don't have anything to talk about, then nothing happens, right? And then we're back to the same place we were before. So I'm going to make sure to be dedicated there, and also asking you all as well from the CS side to when you see those things come up inside our channels, inside issues on calls and stuff, make sure that hey, this sounds like something we should be talking about with the product team. Please create this so that I can go and have this conversation, because that's number one, the most important piece. Otherwise, yeah, we're back to where we started.
I have maybe another question. I saw somewhere in Slack and in Handbook messages of a issue prioritization work group. I think Sophie shared that. And I wonder if there's any crossover between these two initiatives whether our, let's say, feedback loop can also provide some inputs into that work that's been done.
Yeah, and I just saw that for the first time of yesterday. So I don't know, Sophie, if, I definitely want to, there's some overlap there, of course, and I want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts or also, causing to pulled into too many different directions. But it seems like there's some overlaps, but also some important pieces that are kind of missing from both sides there too. So I think that there's some alignment there as well. I don't know if you have any thoughts or anything you want to talk about there.
Yeah, there is a lot of overlap. And I think the working group for issue prioritization is more along the lines from a product perspective, like what's the cost of delaying a feature or something like that? What does that look like for our customers? What's that going to cost us as a company? So it kind of goes along the lines of like, we need to collect that information as a CS team from our customers, and then the working group, we're trying to work on a model to be able to understand if we don't get some feature set in, like what is that going to cost us as a company?
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think so. I think the tracking piece and the working with, getting the right high prioritization stuff is still critical piece that we need to do here. But sounds like maybe decision process maybe better there. I don't know. I mean, it could mean that we need to refactor where we put this information so that we're doing it in one place. I'll have to talk with you a little bit more about what the details of what you have there so far are.
Yeah, it's in the very early stages right now. Like we've had 2 meetings.
Okay.
So nothing solidified yet. But yeah, I think the work that we're doing here to collect that information will be super useful.
And is this more for existing customers or prospective customers as well?
Yeah, prospects too. So like if we don't get a feature in, how much money are we going to lose on a prospect?
Yeah.
Or how much are we going to lose on a customer not re-signing or not upgrading tiers?
Yeah, makes sense.
So overall, I really like the proposal. I think this is going to make us all a lot more efficient at communicating with each other. Because speaking for myself, I mean, there's a lot of you all out there that are talking to customers. So having all of this info in a single place, I think it's going to be very helpful for everyone. 2 things that I think we could add to this to get even more value out of it. You all are all talking to prospects and pre-sale situations. As part of this meeting, I would love to discuss if there are any high priority ones, big deals, or areas you expect to need support from the product team. If we know about that sooner rather than later, we can tee up the various product managers to make sure you have the support and coverage you need to move those deals along further. Another one for the product managers, I think an ask we can make is, we're constantly developing new features, planning out new capabilities, and getting that user feedback is critical to make sure we're building the right thing. I think each of the PMs should be able to come with a list of this is what we're building and we need feedback on. Can you please connect us with some of your accounts, interested people, so that, we're not individually hunting for interested users, but, get more in connection with this is the type of account we want to talk to about this type of feature. I think those are 2 things we can add to this sort of standard agenda to get more out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, yeah, the second part is something that I meant to bring up. That's part of what I want this to be as well, because I think that, yeah, I see a lot of those requests that come out and, seems like mileage varies depending on the specific ask, where we either get nothing or we get to a number of, customers that are interested. I know that's really hard to do. And they also kind of, from the CS side, it's also like, well, we see a lot of that and it happens very often. So it's hard to stay on top of that. So this will help from the communication standpoint. And yeah, I like your thoughts on the first one there. My only concern about that, trying to get the right people lined up there, is I think those tend to be a little bit more timely than this monthly cadence. So I have to kind of think about how we would do, usually it's like, hey, we need to get product involved in this conversation next week versus next month, right? So if we're only meeting once a month, so I guess we'll have to kind of, I do think that's important, but think about how we can incorporate that.
what I see in this regard is that actually, especially TAMs are really good at it, because for us product, it's we can't ship everything in a few weeks. Often we are working on topics for 2 months.
Yeah.
And basically, like usually it's Martin Brummer who reaches out to me with various Kubernetes issues and customers running really interesting setups for us. And I think that TAMs really have that knowledge that, okay, I have a customer, he might not have an urgent issue, but he has an interesting use case. And he knows that somebody in the product area is interested in that topic because in these months they are working on it. And it's not urgent usually for us. So this is how I usually work with Martin, and it works really well.
Okay. Yeah, that's good feedback. And yeah, I think some of those longer, I mean, especially when we have it on the roadmap as something that's going to happen in the next, 3 to 6 releases, that's a good time for us to, start collecting feedback from the field of what we hear, what the use cases look like, and also bringing in you or whoever other product managers who may be interested in getting that feedback. That's a good conversational piece that can happen as part of that. So I think adding that as something of like, hey, maybe this isn't a critical issue, but something that we want to get on the radar for the product manager in this space, so that we can start honing in what those requirements are for this feature to be developed, and make sure we're aligning those correctly.
I would change here. So like, I think we are speaking about two topics. One is where you have critical issues and really things where you want our input and want our attention. And then what Sam mentions is the other way around, where actually we are asking for your care and inputs for something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I think about this being bi-directional, right? Is that that's where we're getting the stuff from product as well, where we need that input, and there's a better pathway for product to take that to CS versus just putting out a request to the entire team, where oftentimes you don't get much back from that, has been my experience and feedback from them. Okay. Other thoughts or
I would have an extremely operational question. I just opened the issue list in the CS product feedback project, and I see that issues just got the label of the stage. Is it intentional to not have the assignees being the product manager or even all the 3 people, or what's the process there? Because I might actually just miss these issues if I'm not mentioned on them.
I think I just overlooked that. That's good feedback, is that we should add that product manager as the assignee for that then. Yep. Okay. And so I think some of the next steps, I'm going to relay information to the CS team to start getting some of these components together. Ask to you all is that, work with your counterparts from product or CS to, get something scheduled for that week after the release, this next release, so we can try going through this process and seeing what iterations we need to make, what changes we need to make, and kind of go through the step here, and align for the next month after that. My other action item, I'll work with Sophie to understand how we can better coordinate with the new working group that's been established, so we're not overlapping, or if we are, that we're doing it in an effective way. And if we need to make some iterations there, we will. And then from there, I think we'll just see how this works with this process. And also mention, by the way, to the CS team that as part of this, the product's going to be looking to also try to get in front of customers, or at least try getting beta testers and things along those lines. So if you have customers who are interested in things on roadmap, this is an opportunity for them to get engaged with the product team.
Hey, Brian. If I can make one suggestion, I know the process that you outlined is for that sync meeting to happen the week after the release date, 22nd. But I would suggest it happen in the first 5 business days following the 22nd, because one of the deadlines for PMs when they're planning the next milestone is to have our target scope of issues for the next milestone by the 4th of the month. And if the 22nd falls on a Monday or a Tuesday and we're having that meeting the week after, it would be really tight against that 4th of the month of the next month, and they would miss that opportunity. So like, for example, I'm just starting a calendar invite for my group now, and I'm going to target the 24th of every month, and we can adjust within my group a few days before, a day before, a few days after. But the 24th of the month would give the PM, or the first 5 days following the 22nd would give the PM a chance to adjust what they're planning for the next milestone.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. That makes total sense. Yeah. I only picked that just it was my guess of when the product team had.
Yeah, it was a good starting point. Yeah, it's a good starting point for discussion. But when I thought about it some more, like if we want to react really quickly for the next milestone, we want to meet sooner than later. And then on your other point of what might be a problem with having this cadence only once a month in case something comes up before then, if the folks that are filling out those issues for discussion at the monthly, they could always tag the PM ahead of time and says, hey, I filled out the issue in that project based on the template. It has all the details and we want to get eyes on it beforehand. It could be done async before that monthly meeting too.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's good. And then we have like kind of a tracker there as well to kind of get some cadence there. Okay.
That could, that would be the starting point for some async collaboration even before the monthly meeting.
Absolutely. That's great. Yep. I like that.
Perhaps what we could also do here is for each of the different stages, put a Slack channel together. Then if the various representatives change from either side, it's easy for someone to leave if they're not involved anymore or catch up if they're coming in. And then that would also support a lot of the async activities we were just talking about.
It might not be appropriate for every group though. In my case, I would definitely recommend using the group channel because then even engineers are involved and I like to be a short bridge between the customer and the engineer, and that's the shortest one.
Sure. Yeah, whatever works for you.
But sometimes it might be useful and in bigger groups.
It could be actually, we do have one channel already, the CS product feedback channel. I'll invite you all to that and just have one channel there. So it might be good for people to see kind of some collaboration there from other groups. And, I think sometimes, actually quite oftentimes, some of these things are crossing over multiple stages, which is something I didn't talk about here real quickly. If that happens there, I was just thinking we might just want to have the assignee, as Victor mentioned, be both the product managers from those different stages, no matter where it's put, or also you could put on 2 labels and we can make sure we have that conversation between the teams.
Yeah, I like having that common single Slack channel that you have in the collaboration guide there for CS product feedback.
Yep, and then we can also invite, that way people can come in from that are not, the DRIs from the CS team. They can come in there and ask questions, or like you had mentioned, if we need something earlier than that time, hey, can you jump on this? Here's the information. Good conversation point there. Cool. Few minutes left here, and I know, okay. Anything else that we should have, or thoughts, questions, things we need to change? You can always ping me afterwards, but excited about getting started with this and hoping this is going to make a good impact on the organization.
Thanks for getting this rolling, Brian. I think it's going to be really helpful on both sides, CS and product.
Yes, and thank you for being part of this. Awesome. Well, we'll break then, and I will follow up with all the stuff that I had from action items. And thanks again for joining. And I'll put the recording and I'll paste it in the channel there as well. Invite everyone there. Thanks. See y'all later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.